Leah, thank you so much for joining us. Very excited to have you. I'm going to read a little quick bio and then we'll jump into our chat. Leah is a thought leader and pioneer in the customer experience space. For over 2 decades, she has successfully grown and scaled companies while ensuring customers stay at the heart of the business and the focus of every step of the customer journey. As the founder and chief experience officer of her consulting firm, Better Growth, she has started she's coached startup founders, Fortune 500 companies, and C-level executives on how to leverage the voice of the customer to increase their brand awareness and ROI. She's also a fierce advocate for diversity in tech and has helped companies build their diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, recruiting practices, and training programs for underrepresented populations, especially with the LGBTQIA community. She currently resides in rural South Carolina with her wife and 18-month-old daughter. Is your daughter still 18 months old? They changed
No,
her.
she's 21 months old now. I need to update my bio. She's grown so fast. She's like a weed. She's just it's crazy.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's start by just jumping in, and that was the sort of like pat bio, but would love to hear in your own words a little bit more about yourself, and we'll start to get into what you do in your consulting work.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, first, thank you all for joining today to, talk about customer success. It's been exciting for me to see such an emphasis on this career field, being somebody that started in it pretty young. I'm a really honest and blunt person. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably know that about myself. And I'm going to do that today, right? It's kind of interesting for me because I have had 100 different hobbies. I have I'm from Austin, Texas. I've lived in Austin and New York and San Francisco and Portland, Oregon. And now I moved to South Carolina and have pigs and goats and live on a farm, right? Like I can't stay still and I can't stay consistent, but I've been in customer success as a career my entire adult life. And I think that is interesting, right? Like it's the one solid thing in my life I wouldn't change. And it's because I love human to human communication. And so I love to see this evolution of fighting for a seat in a company at all, to fighting our way at a seat to the revenue table, to we can't like get it, like we get job offers every day, right? Like it's so exciting to see this evolution and to see so much importance around customer success. So there's a lot of people you could talk to, and I'm honored that you want to talk to me today.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to have you here, Leah. Let's just dig into your first thought there. I'm curious, how much do you think that this embrace of customer success as a category of employment, all the way up to chief customer officer, how much do you think that signals a shift in the world of technology and the way that we're thinking about this interaction between technology and humans? Or how much do you think that it's just like, oh, this is another way we can make money and tech companies are about making money, so we're going to emphasize customer success?
Well, I think that it's a little bit of everything, right? Because you've got certain companies that do things for the right reasons, certain companies that don't. And then there's this is what I mean about the blunt side. There's a lot of things in tech companies that are designed to set things like relationships up to fail, right? You can start out with a CEO with all the great intent in the world of having a customer-centric environment and a product that was designed to do good. But as they have to scale, as they have to bring in money, more people get involved. And as we all know, when you're around lots of people, there's always some good and bad in that, right? You start taking out, I think one of the least talked about things is venture capital. You literally bring in venture capital, and then you've got people who want a return on their money. That has nothing to do with human relationships. It's all about the dollar. So even if you're the kindest, most caring CEO in the world, when you sign up with the mafia that is venture capital in a lot of cases, you have to kind of lose that human side of yourself. And so I'm interested to see. I'm a data nerd. I think you've got to be great at data science to be a good CS person. And I think when you look at the forecasting for a potential economic downturn, going even more south than we are today, and that's going to dry up some venture capital, I'm almost curious for CS if that means that we're going to get more relationships, right? Because as we know, customer success in the spotlight, or as I know, being in it as long as I can, is cyclical around the economy. So when the sales pipeline dries up, there's more emphasis on keeping money in the door, which is our jobs, right? And so that's when they hire more CS and there's more focus on that. But also when there's less venture capital, that means there's more bootstrap and more emphasis on customers. And so, it's all a game. The human side of it is something to be very mindful in when you're looking for a job in customer success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that tech companies have and can definitely skew to putting things into algorithms and saying, well, this software has proven that if we do X, then it puts out Y. And so we're just going to multiply X by 10 and assume that Y is going to come out by 10 or something like that. And
yeah,
there's a neglect of the actual human part of the equation to begin with, for sure.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you can say a little bit more about the consulting work that you're doing.
Yeah, listen, this is funny to me. So I worked a little bit of luck, but also a lot of hard work. When I was back in Austin, Texas, my home area, I was actually born in rural Texas. However, I moved to Austin as soon as I could. And I watched Austin evolve downtown from being, law firms and real estate agencies and stuff like that into just tech startup. And so early in my career, I got involved with what ended up being an actual rocket ship of a company, and they were looking to Silicon Valley for how they had established some things, and customer success was this idea, right? That some of these larger companies that have been around for quite some time and are still around probably because of, really understood that embracing relationships was important. So they were trying to carbon copy that, and they came up with this relationship department. They didn't know what to call it, but they called it, I think it was a community manager was my first job title. Made no sense, but it was customer success manager in today's terminology. But, I think the key thing here is just the evolution of it is that it comes from the human side, right? And one of my biggest value points that I tell people and why I got into consultancy was, as I worked for this rocket ship, everyone wants to carbon copy what worked before, just like they want to AI us, right? And so how I got into consulting was, I worked for years and years and years after that rocket ship. Everyone wanted to hire me to do that same algorithm. But just like I talked about before, I couldn't copy the same algorithm, because even though I brought my tips and techniques and ideas to the table, I didn't have the same leadership. I had different venture capital firms. I had different filters of what I could actually bring to the customer. And so I was successful sometimes, and sometimes I wasn't, right? And when I looked back at my career and I got to this point where I was just like, every year and a half, I was working myself out of a job, right? Because once it was running, I was done. When I looked back and saw where there was real success and where there was failure, was all about the buy-in of the leadership. And so, to be honest with you, I started Better Growth because I threw a tantrum. I was tired of being collected. One, I am an LGBTQ member, clearly, and I am a female with a lot of experience in customer success. And I think as diversity became important, I was collected. I was collected for my experience, and I was collected for who I appeared to be. And I felt that, and I realized that. And so, but I wasn't able to make the change I wanted to in customer success, even with my experience, just that fighting boards and stuff. And so, I had moved my entire life to Portland, Oregon. I had lived there for 3 years. I was working at a startup where, it was just the same old story. Like, everything's about the customer on paper, nothing's about the customer in action. And I just kind of lost my mind, to be honest with you. I was like, I wanted to quit before it was the great resignation. Right. And I told my wife, I went home and I said, I don't think I want to be in customer success anymore. I have had it. And I felt sorry for myself for 3 or 4 days. And then I started to pick myself up like most of us do, right? And I was like, why don't I do this for myself? Like, why don't I start my own business and be a consultant? And let me tell you something, this sucks, but like I tell people when I come into the organization, when you pay someone as a consultant to come in and tell you what to do, they actually listen to you. So I've made more moves and more power coming in, but I work for CS managers. I'm hired by the CEO to come in and tell CS managers that they need to be less driven from, sorry about my dogs, that they need to be less driven from the heart and that they need to, be more focused on revenue. But what I actually end up doing is I come into an organization and I partner with the customer success leaders and change the CEO and venture capital's vision. So that's a very long answer, but I feel like you have to really understand it to know why I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that so I should say I've had my own experiences in consulting, and I've found very similar to what you're saying, that you have a lot of power and you have a lot of freedom of voice when you aren't afraid to be fired, basically. And there's a certain, if you're a full-time employee, then maybe you're a little more beholden to the company. It's a little harder to speak your mind. When you're a consultant, you're kind of paid to speak your mind. And so there's definitely a freedom in that, which I can appreciate. It's also really interesting that you are now, as a consultant, kind of put in the role of sales in addition to customer success. I wonder if you've reflected on that much. I'm sure you devote a lot of a decent amount of time to actually selling your services.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's really funny. This is where I failed a lot as a business owner. The first thing I did when I started to get successful is I said, I'm going to take all of my profits and I'm going to hire a sales team. I'm going to really get aggressive with the sales team. And I brought them in and I realized that they couldn't speak my passion, that no matter how hard they worked, they weren't bringing me the right people. And I really panicked because I was like, what do I do? And then I realized very early that I needed to take on sales, because to really sell customer success as a service, you need to speak the mind of someone from customer success. So I really got, and still have, a vision. I'm our top salesperson. And I should say our company is very large. It's not just me, and I'm not the CEO. We have a CEO. I brought him on once it started to be successful. We were upwards of 40 employees a couple of years ago. We sold a portion of our business. Our first year in operations, we brought in almost 2 million in revenue. And I've paid myself very little. I put most of that back into the company to grow it. So I have genuinely had success with what I'm doing. But what I realized is that I was the salesperson. And so I brought on a CEO who had been a CRO to help with revenue and to help coach me on sales. And it's changed everything as I go in and consult. Now, I will say part of our business now is that we've realized, a lot of people want help in sales and customer success. And so I have partnered with sales consultants that work for us now that come in and we work hand in hand. But the cool thing is I brought in salespeople that I had a great relationship with in the past, and we had great revenue results. And so we do what we did at other companies together and show you cannot be successful as a startup without sales and customer success working together. The problem is I look at the customer like a coffee cup, and you can never have two people holding that coffee cup at the same time to really scale and have return on investment within your own business, right? And so I've learned the ability to show how to scale those efforts where there's, air traffic control done by customer success, and where sales is able to still maintain a relationship with the customer, but not stay lingering around like they're like some escalation point to the customer success manager. So yeah, that's been pretty cool to see.
I think it's really important to note that those relationships that you've developed with colleagues have transcended any one working relationship, and that you've actually found a way to keep working with people that you have developed respect for and you understand their capabilities. Speaks again to the power of seeing people as human and actually cultivating relationships. I wonder if you could say a little bit about, because we'll have both here and watching the recording later, I think we'll have a decent number of people who are CSMs or senior CSMs who might be thinking a little bit about their career trajectory. I wonder if you could say a little bit more for those folks who are staying sort of in-house on the customer success track and maybe looking to slowly have a few different corporate experiences, sort of work the title up from one to the next. What are your thoughts about how to do that now that it's no longer called community or something else or relationships, and that it's actually this increasingly defined role of customer success? What are your thoughts for someone who's starting out more now, or maybe has up to 5 years of experience and is thinking about what their career trajectory should be?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to be brief on this one because there's a lot packed in that. So first, you need to know that despite what I just said about sales, I wasted probably $100,000 on sales efforts, and 90% of my profits have been word of mouth for my career. And so one of the first things I tell a lot of people that reach out to me and ask how to be a consultant, and I have proudly made several of them successful consultants, but I've talked a lot more out of doing it right now. The most important thing you can do is grow your career and learn in the job. The reason why I'm really good at what I do is because I started at the ground floor. Like the 17 years of experience you see there, I started out as an intern, and then I moved into a support rep, and then I worked my way into a support, senior support role. And then I taught myself data science and put myself through some courses. And then I became a community manager. And then I was a customer success manager. And then I was a customer success senior team lead. And then I was a manager of customer success. And then I was a senior manager of customer success. And then I was right. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I put in the time, and I'm still a student. I have to teach myself every day because it's so evolving, right? Because humans evolve. We're not in sales and marketing and product where you can kind of sit comfortable with what you know for 5 years. We're surgeons. We got to learn the newest techniques every day, and every day it's changing. And so to be successful as a consultant, you need to put in your time at a company. And I can't tell you how many people call me starving, right? I can't make money. How are you doing it? What are you doing? Like, can you help me? And it's because you really need experience to be able to go in and talk the talk, right? Like, it's really hard to knock me off my feet with a question. You can try that at me later if you want, but I worked really, really hard to get there, right? The next thing I want to say is, learn on other people's dimes. Like, I know that sounds terrible, but that's what I did, right? And so the thing you have to keep in mind is, especially in the startup world, if you're a startup junkie like I was, and I really highly recommend you do that at some point in your career, you're going to go through a lot of jobs. And it's because people spend money poorly and people spend money wisely. And there's not a lot of gray when it comes to companies, right? And so, when you work for a company that is taking a lot of money, right? You see people celebrate that they took $40 million or $70 million Series C. That does not mean that they did a scratch off and got $70 million. That means that they got probably 70 new people to tell them how they can communicate with customers. And they owe a debt of 70 million times 10. Okay. That's how that works. So when people celebrate that, I'm like, that's like being like, I maxed out my Amex, like it on LinkedIn. Like, I never get that, right? Like, that's dumb. Like, I'm gonna be blunt. Like, I look at how much money people take. You know what impresses me? When I look at a startup and they took a series A of $2 million and they hired 60 people. You know what that means? That means they make money, right? That they bootstrap some of that and they have more power. So put in your time on other people's dimes to see what works and what doesn't as you grow your career. Also, they're going to have to pay you a paycheck. There's actually laws. I know as somebody that has employees, they got to pay you so they can do stupid stuff and they still got to pay you, right? So take your time working for companies, put in your work, help them succeed. But most importantly, pay attention to what they do wrong. And then how do you change that at the next business you go to, at the next job you take? Or ultimately, I want to talk every single person I ever talk to into being their own boss one day and owning their own company, because my mental health has increased so much in doing that for myself. And I want everyone to do that. Like, I want everyone to do that. And so put in the time, learn the mistakes, grow your career, and then go do it yourself. I don't know. Like I said, I can't be brief on that one, but that's just honesty.
Yeah, I would definitely say, I think a lot of my biggest lessons have come from watching leadership of a company that I'm with and saying, oh, I don't think I would have done that. and then thinking about, like, how would I have handled that situation? Not that I would have handled it perfectly by any means, but it presents you with a lot of practical case studies, right?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I'm kind of a smart ass. And so when I see people do that and you're trying to advise them and they treat you like you know nothing, I just think to myself, neat. A case
right,
study on how to fail. Neat. It really helps you deal with moments like
right. Let's check back in and see 6 months and see how things are going.
that.
Can you say a little bit more about what do you, well, interestingly enough, I mean, you're saying that people can go out and have a diversity of experience and that's important. I imagine probably as a consultant, you also continue to get that diversity of experience, right? Because
Oh
you get to
gosh, yeah.
see a lot of different clients, how people are handling different situations. And so especially on top of that, do you see any emerging trends in customer success, either in terms of skills like data management and understanding the application of data, or in terms of tools that are being deployed, or are you seeing any big trends in customer success?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack there as well. First, there's no company doing it the same, which is interesting to me, right? And so I do think it's interesting that it's organic. I think there's parts of that that are great, right? Because it is humans helping humans in customer success. The most important tool in customer success is your heart, and then your tech stack and your trainings and your techniques help you scale that heart and that effort outward to your customers, right? But I think everyone's making it up as they go. And I actually do think that is a challenge for sure, right? Like there needs to be some commonality. There needs to be some things that are consistent across the board. This is how CS works, right? And so I think it's a little frightening to see the chaos in it a little bit. I think there's a lot of showmanship and pageantry online of people that think they're experts and doing when anyone calls me an influencer, I'm like, absolutely not. I'm a student, right? Like there's a lot of people that claim they're influencers. You look at their experience, they don't have much. And I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around customer success. It's hurting it. Right? Like never listen to someone that tells you they know everything. I know very little. Thank you for joining me today. I know very little, right? Anyone that tells you they know everything, run. And so I think there's a lot of bad advice in customer success happening right now. And so, some of the things I'm seeing is people and startups are purchasing really expensive tech stack immediately for customer success. And back in my day, we had like Google Sheets connected to Google Sheets, right? Like CS tools should be the last thing you purchase, and you should not be in a rush to do that as a CS leader. And this is why. Data integrity is everything. And that budget that you're spending for this fancy CS tool that's a Cadillac that you can now not afford the gas for or the people to drive it, because now your budget for hiring people has been spent on a tool that sits there that you cannot use because your data integrity wasn't ready or you didn't have enough data yet. Even worse is what's really crushing a lot of my clients. And so I'm seeing a trend in this rush to get a CS tool, right? A lot of the influencers you follow today work for CS tools. And we're being told that's the first thing you should buy. And again, I don't have anything against that. I actually have a lot of friends that work in this and that are influencers. But I have to tell you that when you've got people that are telling you need a tool right away, it's for their benefit. Like, I don't think we stop to ask who's telling us things enough, right? And so that's why I'm agnostic to tools. I've had a lot of tools as I've become, more popular in customer success and putting myself out there that have tried to sign with me, and I refuse to do it. And it's because 9 times out of 10, I don't advise the same tool to one client that I do to the other client that I do to the other client, because you really, 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 really get handcuffed to the tool you pick. So one of the negative trends I'm seeing is purchasing a CS tool too soon, liking a CS tool company more than you understand their product, and then not having the bandwidth or the data integrity to make it work for you. And then you can't hire people. And so you as a leader are having to be a player coach for freaking ever because you can't hire a team, because you spent $1 billion on a CS tool you didn't need. So that's a trend I do not like. Please be advised against that. The next thing that I'm seeing is a trend that I do like is that more and more people are hiring junior employees to join their customer success team. And I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with this. The reason is I love diversity, but I hate all of the pageantry around diversity and inclusion that isn't real. Like, just because you hired somebody who's a person of color that went to Harvard does not mean you're doing diversity, right? We're all going to work for that person soon. Congratulations. Real diversity is when you take out the barrier to entry and you hire that really talented person that's a barista at Starbucks or that's at Target or these places, and you build customized training, which is what I have changed my business to do. And then you bring them through those training programs, you set them there. So what I found, and this is no smoke and mirrors, you can build this yourself. You don't need to hire me. Like, do this. Is that when you build a customized training program and you hire really junior people, over 3.5 years of collecting data on this with hundreds of hires I put through these programs, they were 90% more likely to stay at the 2-year mark. And then with the Great Resignation, the average of a 2 to 5 year employee has gone from 18 months to 8 months. Like, hire junior.
Oh.
Put them through the program. You get more of them. They're dedicated to you. They now have insurance. Now, I have to speak to LGBTQ stuff here as well. The other trend that I'm seeing is more and more and more companies are going completely chat-based for support. Do it. Get rid of the phone. Email is stupid. Chat is everything. Okay. Ask me how to do it if you don't know how. But what's really great for the LGBTQ community is the most marginalized community in the LGBTQI space is the trans community. And with chat, you now can give trans members a place to safely be where they don't have to physically appear in front of a customer when they're going through things like transitioning. And so it is just an extra benefit that you can really hire diversity in the LGBTQ community, as well as you can reach people across the board that might not have had the experience, but can type and that can be trained well. So highly recommend it.
Amazing. Thank you for that summary. And I should make a full disclosure that this event is associated with Minerva, which is a customer success software product.
Sorry.
and I fully support.
I'm blunt.
And fully support everything that you just said. And I see that trend so much. And it's like, who is this? Yeah, you have to question, who is this really adding value for? It feels like there's a lot of hype happening. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, listen, I speak my mind and it's sometimes to my own detriment, but I will tell you this, right? Listen to this. Like, you can be a software program and you can be related to all things customer success. And the most humble thing you can do is admit where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that's something that more sales teams need to do. We don't allow them to do that because we give them big quotas. But one of the products that I've purchased in my career where I didn't have a lot of money building a business was someone who said, I don't think we're the right product for you today. And then I did everything in my power to get to them. So I think there's something about just being honest.
I was just going to say something along the lines of, please don't buy Minerva unless it's actually a tool that's going to solve your problem.
I hope I didn't hit a Nerva. Bad joke.
Bad joke of the day. Well, this is great, and we should wrap up, but I did want to ask before we transition to the networking portion, for those folks in CS that might identify as LGBTQ, are there any resources, any communities or anything that you'd want to highlight for those folks?
Yeah, listen, somebody asked me a great question around the stats. I'm working on a one-pager and a case study for that right now. So I'm happy. I'll be posting that on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to connect with people. Also, I do have my own little CS community, which is called breakoutcs.com. And I would love for Success Corner to come and talk to my team about joining as well. I want us to kind of fight the fact that there shouldn't be a monopoly in customer success. That's one of the things that I loved when Peter reached out to me. I was like, absolutely. We should have 10 or 15 different CS communities, not 1 or 2, right? Like, I love that. So absolutely love what you guys are doing. I want to make sure more of my team comes over there. We only meet once a month. That's not enough. We meet once a month to talk, right? And so I want to get some of my members over here, hopefully vice versa. Peter, I'd love to have you come speak to us next, but I just want to thank you all for having me join today. If I can ever help you, my client, like, I'm booked right now. Like, I actually don't have room for clients, but I have room for recruiting. So if you are looking to recruit junior employees, I hire great talent to do that. And I also build those training programs. So I'm not taking on new consulting clients probably for the next 6 months, but I am definitely taking on recruiting gigs. So if you need that, please, 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 please keep me in mind, because I would love to work with wonderful humans like yourself. That's all I got. And sorry about my kid screaming, but she's ready to go camping.
I love it. Leah, thank you so much. This was really wonderful. And I think your passion for the subject is very clear. Contrary to what you said, I think you do know quite a bit in this space. I appreciate the spirit of the student as well. And I know that you have to run. You're welcome to transition to the networking portion or not. But for those who are able, we're going to transition to this platform called Kumo Space. If you don't yet have an account, you'll have to create an account as part of when you click the link, but should take you like 5-10 seconds, and we would love to see you there.
That's fantastic. Thank you all. I do have to drop because I'm going camping, but I plan on joining y'all's next one and becoming a member just like you all are. So thank you so much. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good time. Have fun. Bye.